Blessings be upon you all, dear listeners. Welcome to the Mental Health Matters Show with your host, Rehana Sidat. And I have a very special guest today with me, joining us online, Tereza Fotiadi. Do you want to say hello to our listeners?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, and we really appreciate you taking time out from your busy schedule to join us today. So you're listening to Ramadan FM on 87.7 FM. We're also on digital radio 9B. You can text us or WhatsApp us on 077 488 55055. We're on Facebook Live. If you wanted to make any comments, ask any questions to my wonderful guest, Tereza, today. Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, or now X, and Spotify. We're everywhere. So do tune in. Now, our topic today is anxiety. Anxiety. And then we're going to touch upon anxiety disorders, so the difference between anxiety and anxiety disorders. And we're also going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest in a bit more detail, and then we're going to have a little conversation. And Tereza's very kindly agreed to share her lived experiences. So Tereza moved from Cyprus to study her law degree, her LLB, at the University of Leicester in 2016. And later on, she completed her legal practice and then went on to do her master's, her LNM. I can't get these acronyms, I apologize, at the University of Law. She joined a very well-known local medical negligence firm in January 2021, commencing her training contract in January 2023. Currently, she is serving as Vice President of Leicestershire Junior Lawyers Division, fostering support for local junior lawyers. She also mentors at Leicester University. And is that both the universities, Tereza?
Yes, both universities of Leicester, the Montfort and University of Leicester.
That's amazing. And the Mentors Collective. So what's the Mentors Collective, Tereza?
So it's a more national organization of people who are looking to get a training contract, a vacation scheme, or want advice on their legal careers. So as trainees, we become mentors. And I'm also the vice president of marketing there. So we kind of have one-to-one with different mentees, and we kind of guide them through their interviews and their career pathways.
That's amazing. And as somebody with experience of going through those processes, I think it's really helpful for others, and that mentoring enables more people to, pursue their career aspirations. Amazing. And you're also active in the European Youth Parliament, and you attend sessions across Europe. Wow. So what does that involve, the European Youth Parliament?
It involves everything you can imagine, really. People think it's mostly debates and arguing, but it's not. It's really coming together from all around Europe and even across the world, really, to do what's called sessions. So we discuss topics that are currently going in the news, or even topics that we want to see developments in, and we kind of come to some solutions as the youth, and we have the opportunity to send those to the European Parliament and kind of suggest some solutions to some issues that we think are going to be suitable for us, the youth, and our future. So that's how we work together, and we kind of have opportunities for everyone. If you're into media,
really
or anything you can think of, really.
Wonderful. So it sounds like lots of work, but that's amazing. But lots of opportunity, travel as well. And okay, so in your spare time, you enjoy time with your family, your friends, travel, and culinary adventures. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I mainly focus on the family stuff, because If I have any spare time, I like to spend it with friends, really. But food is a huge part of when I come together with family and friends. So I kind of join both together. I like to cook. I like to try new things, and I like to keep my Greek culture. So I try to do the recipes that are a bit difficult to do.
So you set yourself challenges
Yeah, yeah,
and then share with mum. Look, mum, I tried.
yeah. I tried.
Love it, love it. And you've got me tempted with the Greek food, definitely, all that Mediterranean food. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so today, obviously, we're talking about anxiety. So if any of you listening today or watching us on Facebook Live think that perhaps you are struggling, please do seek help. There are lots of organizations out there that can help you. Anxiety UK is one of those. You can go on to just do a Google search, do Anxiety UK, and it'll come up. You can go on the NHS website. You can go on to the local Leicestershire Partnership Trust website. You can also go on to our website, which is Jamila's Legacy. And also the other one that I wanted to tell you about was Mind. Mind has lots of resources, so it's a good idea to go onto the Mind website as well. So what is anxiety? Let me tell you a little bit about what anxiety is. Anxiety, what we feel, is what you feel when we might be worried, we might feel tense or afraid, particularly about things that are about to happen or which we think could happen in the future. And anxiety is really a natural human response that we feel when we're under threat. And it can be experienced through our thoughts, our feelings, and you can also have physical sensations. Yeah, most people feel anxious at times. You've got an exam coming up, or you might be getting married, or you've never traveled before and you're going on a plane for the first time. It would be normal to feel anxious. It's particularly common to experience anxiety when you're going through high levels of stress and big changes in your life, and it can have a big impact on your life. And often we're human beings like animals. We've evolved over time, but you may have heard of something from fight or flight response or freeze response. So we go into that mode to protect ourselves from danger. So if you think about the tiger, the caveman and the cave woman and the tiger out there in the jungle or whatever. And so this would be the natural human response. And this continues to happen when we feel under threat. Our bodies react by releasing certain hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, which can be helpful because they can make us more alert, they can make us act faster, it makes our heart beat faster, quickly sending the blood where it's most needed. And after we feel the threat has passed, our bodies release other hormones to help our muscles relax again. So this can cause us sometimes to have a bit of a shake, and this is what we call fight, flight, or freeze response. It's something that happens naturally in our bodies automatically, and we don't have control over it. However, we don't live in the caveman and cavewoman's world anymore. So sometimes this is a little bit skewiffed, and our responses can be, overreactive at times. Okay, so that's a little bit about anxiety in general. But I want to talk to you, Tereza, more about you've done all these amazing things. You've got your law degree, you've completed your legal practice and your master's in law as well. You're working with a wonderful firm, and you're doing all these other wonderful things. You're vice president at the Leicestershire Junior Lawyers Division. You're supporting other lawyers, junior lawyers. You're a part of a mentoring collective. You're vice president there. You're also active in the European Parliament, and also mentoring at both De Montfort and Leicester University. So it's amazing. So first of all, growing up, what were your dreams and aspirations?
Um, I always kind of wanted to be a police officer.
Oh.
uh, yeah, which was very unusual for a 6-year-old. But I didn't want to be a ballerina. I just wanted to be a police officer. So that's how I kind of understood that I wanted to do something with the law, like order, something like that. So that's how, like, I think my parents kind of understood that that's what I kind of like. And I also talk a lot, and I used to talk a lot when I was a child too. So um, they kind of understood from a very young age that that's a path that I may want to discover in the future.
Excellent. So they
So that,
encouraged you and supported you with that. That's amazing. I like
mhm,
that. Law versus ballerina.
yeah.
And so, what made you think about the type of degree you were going to do? You know, you knew that you wanted to pursue a career in law, possibly police. What kind of age were you when you decided, actually, this is exactly what I want to do?
So it was very last minute before I came to the UK, to be honest. In Cyprus, there's very strict kind of thinking around the law. There's this stigma that you need to be good in history and ancient Greek and things like that, something that I wasn't really good at. I was more of a chemistry person, a science kind of a student. So I thought to myself, okay, let's do criminology. That's an easy solution to this because I can't really do law. I applied for criminology here at the University of Leicester, but then people started really telling me, oh, I don't know if there are a lot of career options in Cyprus for criminology. I don't know whether you want to come back. Have you ever thought of the law degree? And to be honest, I was very, very negative about it. I didn't want to do it. I thought I would be studying Latin and ancient Greek in university in a different language. I really, really didn't want to do it. But one day I just had a conversation with my parents. They took me to a counselor who explained to me that, you know what, it's not all ancient Greek and history. So I needed that person to
Yeah.
kind of confirm what I will be
So
doing.
the careers advice was important. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's how I ended up applying for a law degree instead.
And I imagine you loved it, which is why you're doing
I
what you're
did.
doing.
I
So it was
did.
the right decision. Excellent. Okay. So what made you decide to go into kind of medical law and medical negligence? What made you decide that?
As I said, I was more of a science based kind of brain, so I wanted to explore that a bit further. So at university, I chose medical law as an option module to just see how things work, if it's something I actually like in practice, what that involves really, and I really really liked it. So then I applied to my firm, Musajuk, for a work experience to just see how it is in an everyday life scenario, how what is a client, what kind of cases people deal with. So I came in the firm, and everyone was very helpful. They showed me all the cases, and I'm still here, so it was a good work
Excellent.
experience.
That's really good to hear. So, Teresa, moving on to our topic, anxiety. So, I know you're somebody who, you know, is happy to share that you've struggled with anxiety. So, when did your anxiety start? You know, kind of when it got to a stage where you were able to recognize and say, this is anxiety.
So it has been very recent that I have put a label on it.
Okay.
I've been a very stressful child. I was very stressed at primary school. I remember myself being very stressed from like age 6, not being able to go to school every day. Was really attached to my parents. Had all these symptoms of anxiety from a very young age, but didn't really recognize what it
Yeah.
was, and I didn't really know what was happening to me. I thought I was just scared or wanted my mom kind of thing. I didn't really know what was it really. And my first year of university, it was really difficult for me. I have done all these things now, but it didn't start like that. It was a very difficult start for me. I wasn't doing great in university my first year. I had really low marks. I wasn't able to go to the university because my anxiety wouldn't let me go. I wasn't doing any events, anything of this extracurricular I do now. I wasn't even able to sign up for them.
So
So
that's really, really great that you've managed to move on from that in spite of all that anxiety. But the fact that you felt this way since you were very young and very attached to your parents, and then to do this big move from Cyprus to Leicester, and that must have really
yeah.
increased your anxiety. And then, you know, strange surroundings, away from your support network. University is always stressful. Lots of people, you know, that I work with do struggle with that change of going to university, especially when they move away from home. So yeah, this is quite a challenge. So it's amazing that in spite of all that, you still decided to make the big leap, move here, continue to study, and even when it's got really difficult, you've pushed the boat out. It's amazing. So this stress and anxiety that you felt, what kind of symptoms would you have? I know that you said you've had it through school and whilst at university as well. What kind of symptoms would you have?
So my main one was nausea. That made me the most anxious. So I would feel nauseous, and it would make me even more anxious because I was scared if I would throw up or if I would feel distressed. So that was usually the first feeling I would get physically. I would not be able to breathe normally. I would feel my heart beating very fast. I would get this shaking kind of waves in my body. And I would just feel very, very uncomfortable. I would usually cry, which is something I usually do now as well. If I reach a point that I feel that I can't express myself in another way, I will usually cry,
Okay.
which I find very helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know people may think, oh, why are you sad? Or don't cry. But sometimes you just
Yes.
need those 5 minutes of getting it out of your system.
I think that's
So,
really great advice, Teresa. Um, Lots of people, I think, suppress their emotions because the way society is, it's not acceptable to be vulnerable. And I think having that release is really important. Having that cry is really important. It's a way for somebody to be able to cope and release and move forward. So I think having that moment as well is really important.
mhm,
Sorry, I don't know where I'm getting this cough from. Okay, so you've just described some of your symptoms when you're
mhm,
extremely anxious, and here are some of the symptoms that can happen to other people. So their effects on your body and on your mind. So for the mind, you mentioned nausea, Teresa. So some people will get a churning feeling in their stomach, feel lightheaded or dizzy, pins and needles, feel restless or unable to sit still, headaches, backache, or even other aches in parts of the body, faster breathing, a fast thumping or irregular heartbeat, sweating or hot flushes, sleep problems, grinding teeth, especially at night, and feeling sick, as you said, needing to go to the bathroom more often, and having panic attacks. And we'll talk about panic attacks later because I know that's something that you experience as well. So
yeah.
that's the body physical symptoms, but then there are also the effects of anxiety on your mind, and these can include a variety of things, including feeling tense, nervous, unable to relax, having a sense of dread or fearing the worst, imagining the worst. So something that might be the least chance of happening, but you've gone there already, that, oh my God, what if this person's going to die? Or what if this is going to happen? What if I'm going to have an accident, etc.? What if I'm going to fail? When, the chances are so slim, but that's what you'll go to is the worst case scenario. Feeling like the world is speeding up or slowing down, feeling like other people can see that you're anxious and are looking at you. You can't stop worrying, or you think that bad things will happen if you stop worrying about anxiety itself. So having anxiety, and then worrying about the anxiety. So it's a double whammy, you know, and then, you know, worrying about how that will present, you know, other people might see you, you might have a full-blown panic attack, you know, how that's going to impact. Needing lots of reassurance from other people, that can happen as well, you know, worrying that people are angry or upset with you. So low self-esteem is quite connected to this as well. Worrying that worrying that you're losing touch with reality. Low mood and depression is common. So common feature for people with low mood and depression is anxiety. Rumination, so that's when you constantly revisit bad experiences, bad memories. You keep on thinking about that situation again and again. You know, it's like torture, but you're unable to stop it. And then for some, there's depersonalization. This is a type of disassociation where you feel disconnected from your mind or your body, or like you are a character that you're watching in a film. So, you know, you're looking in from an outward position. Or derealization. This is another type of disassociation when you feel disconnected from the world around you, or you feel like the world's not real, you know, worrying about lots of things that might happen in the future. So there's a, you know, it's not necessary that you will have all of these symptoms. I'm just giving you a list of what could possibly happen. So for you, let's go into some of the things that have happened. So in your second and third year, I know it got quite difficult. Before things got better, you had quite a lot of difficult experiences. Do you want to talk a little bit about any of those?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, like you said, it was very difficult to move here to begin with. I was meeting a lot of people, but I couldn't really understand who was a real friend or who was just, you know, someone at the university. I struggled with being confident in my accent and the way it was a second language for me, so it was very difficult for me to I needed that reassurance, like you mentioned, and I really had let other people's opinions matter to what I was thinking about myself at the time.
It's hard, isn't it, when you're the new person and you're adjusting to a whole different way of life, and like you said, English wasn't your first language, and you feel judged, you know, and you know, you want to make sure how you're communicating is understood, and recognizing whether this person is somebody you can be friends with or not. So it's difficult. Can I ask, did you seek any help from the university?
No, I didn't at the time, even though I would really advise anyone to do it, because they're amazing, but they kind of recognized it themselves, which was it was brilliant, really, because one of my tutors recognized that I had the potential of doing well, and I had the potential of, you know, I got into the university, but there was something not allowing me to move forward. So she kind of approached me herself and started this conversation with me, which was really helpful because I was able to then rearrange some of my tutorials to allow me to attend them at a group I felt comfortable. At the time, I felt comfortable and get the support I needed. But I didn't officially seek help from the university in terms of mediating circumstances or anything like that, because I was really focused on the stigma around this back then.
So the stigma about reaching out for help because you're struggling with your mental health, or disclosing that you were struggling. And so that even for you as a young person in university was an issue. And I think this really highlights the stigma that continues to exist in society, and how we are perceived and judged if we are struggling as weak when that's not the case. So this can be a barrier for people seeking help. So if you are someone who's struggling, I would strongly recommend that you do seek help. So if you're at university, the university themselves have lots of support. So there is pastoral care, mentors, mental wellbeing service, counselling service, which are all free to you. And also, if you approach your lecturers, your tutors, I'm sure, like Tereza's experience, they will be helpful. because this also enables you, if you need to get an extension, to have understanding lecturers who, if you don't meet a deadline, you're able to request that extension. If you need support in different ways, how to sit exams, etc., this is all then helpful for you in order for you to complete your education. So it's worth getting that support. There are also neighbourhood mental health cafes. So within all the universities, Loughborough, Leicester, and the Leicester universities, there are drop-ins. So these are confidential mental health drop-in services that you can access, provided by the voluntary sector. And, it's a free non-judgmental space, so you can access those as well. If you're not comfortable accessing anything on site, there are lots of neighbourhood mental health cafes across the city and the county that you can access. If you go onto the Leicestershire Partnership NHS Trust and type in neighbourhood mental health cafes, they all come up. We at Joanna's Legacy run 2 currently, one at Highfields Library and one at Marilyn Vaz Health Centre. So do access those as well. So if that doesn't work for you, there are plenty other helplines that you can access. There's Muslim Youth Helpline, there is Young Minds, there is Shout, there is Mind Info Line. There are lots of different ones. Samaritans, please access those. You're listening to Ramadan FM. You're with me on my Mental Health Matters show with our special guest, Tereza Fotiadi, and she is talking about her experiences of studying law and her career and living with anxiety. So we're talking about anxiety. And if you have any questions, please do text or WhatsApp on 077 488 55055. That's 077 488 55055. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can drop in a comment and we'll try and address that as well. If you want to share any of your experiences, please do so using the text, WhatsApp, or Facebook Live. Okay, Tereza. So first year was difficult, but your lecturer was very understanding, and you were able to seek some support from her. Now, I think I know in our conversation outside of this interview, you'd mentioned that your second and third years got a little bit easier. You were doing well. And then what happened when you started your master's?
So when I started my master's, I found myself in a good place, I would say, because people around me were important and they were a good support system. So it was really important to me. However, I had to travel to Birmingham for my classes. So I was still living in Leicester, traveling to Birmingham on the train, and I was getting the very, very busy train in the morning. So I started experiencing these symptoms of claustrophobia, which I had from before, but I wasn't really sure what I was going through.
So Tereza,
I couldn't really...
Sorry. Don't mean to interrupt. So claustrophobia is when you have a phobia about being around crowds, am I right, and small spaces,
yes,
etc. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's all right. I've had that from a very, very young age, but I was kind of getting over it a bit and then coming back to it. So I found myself in a very crowded train. So I was overthinking everything that was going around me. I remember myself kind of seeking help from mainly my mom at the time. So I would call her, have her on the phone, or kind of trying to distract myself on the train. But then one day it got really bad, and I kind of lost my senses on the train. I passed out on the train because it was getting too much for me. And the train was so busy that nobody really realized what happened. So that's when I started feeling very, very insecure about going on the train. I wasn't very comfortable going into the university. It was a very different course. So I had that kind of stress around me as well. And then COVID happened. So I went from not being able to be around people, having this kind of episode, to not actually be able to go out and live normally. So it was a very difficult time for me.
So Tereza, would you say that COVID actually gave you some relief that you didn't have to go out and be traveling around people? And did that then make you more less likely to venture out when you did need to?
On the one hand, yes, and I was very lucky that my mom happened to visit me out of luck those days, so she kind of got stuck here with me. So that
Right.
was that was very useful. But on the other hand, I would say no, because it didn't allow me to have the time to get over what happened. And when we had to go back to normality, I found it 20 times harder
Yeah.
than,
Yeah.
because I never kind of dealt with what happened before going into lockdown. I just got the relief for like the first lockdown, but then I had to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
And it was harder to deal with it later.
Yeah. And that you raise a really good point. And what I would say, dear listeners, is if you have an anxiety about something, the thing about anxiety, the more you avoid it, the greater the anxiety about that thing becomes, you know. And I mean, I myself live with a generalized anxiety disorder, which means I can get anxious about anything. And the more I put off something, that things gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I try to kind of push myself out in spite of being frightened, in spite of being worried, in spite of the 100 thoughts that get in my head, what if? And I try to just step out and address it as soon as I can. 9 out of 10 times I do that. And there is the odd occasion I will avoid, because avoidance is a big thing around anxiety. Okay, so I think, you know, well done for you. So in spite of that, you pushed yourself out. Did you seek help at that point? I mean, professional
No,
help?
I didn't. I didn't get any professional help, and I just have to say that my parents were amazing at supporting me at every step of the way. They didn't really know what was happening either, but they were really ready to listen. Or me calling them at 3 a.m. crying. They were very with me at that stage, and they kind of showed me the way of getting professional help later on in
Excellent.
life.
That's really, really good to hear. Having a support network is really important, and it's wonderful that you have parents that really understand you and have been supportive regardless of what you needed. You know, they were able to provide that for you. And when you started working again, and the anxiety must have been quite high,
Mm-hmm.
did you seek any support at that point?
No, I didn't. Again, I didn't. But I would say that I came into a very welcoming environment here at the firm.
Yeah.
And from a very early stage, I was able to share my thoughts and emotions with my supervisor. So for me, that was very important to have the support system in my kind of everyday life.
Yeah.
And to just know that in case anything happens, or in case I feel certain ways, there's someone I can go to without feeling judged, or without feeling that, okay, this is going to be a disadvantage on my record, or this is going to affect my work negatively. So I would say that finding the right people to share what you're going through was vital for me.
And I think
It
that's
was
some
really.
really, sorry, Teresa, I keep interrupting. And I think that's some really, really good advice. It's always harder to interview somebody who's online than in person. I think so. I apologize. I've interrupted you again.
No, no, no,
But
no,
it's great that you've had colleagues and a workplace environment that promotes, positive well-being, a supportive environment, and so you're able to share and be open and be honest with. So I think that kind of workplace is really important for any of us that are going through anxiety. I'm going to just quickly mention, because you talked about your panic attack and how you ended up passing out on a train. So let's just look at what a panic attack is. And panic attacks are a type of fear response, which is what you were. You were afraid, extreme claustrophobia. And it's an actual exaggeration of your body's normal response to danger, stress, or even excitement, would you believe? And during a panic attack, the physical symptoms can really build up really quickly. So without warning, that pounding, racing heartbeat, feeling lightheaded, hot, cold, sweating, trembling, shaking, nausea, pain in your chest, struggling to breathe. It can feel like a heart attack, You're choking, legs like jelly, and feeling disconnected, and obviously some people pass out because they just can't cope, and the only way is blank out, And during a panic attack, it's very frightening, isn't it, Teresa? You feel you're losing control, you're going to faint, have a heart attack. And for some people, you even feel like you're going to die. That's how severe it can feel, So it is important to get help. If you're somebody who is having panic attacks, is having extreme anxiety, and it's impacting on your life, it's really important that you get that help. Now, Teresa, you had a bereavement in July 2021. Tell me a little bit. I don't expect you to go into it in depth, but just a little bit, and how that impacted on you.
No, of course. So I lost my grandpa in July 2021, and he's always been my kind of person in the family. So when I was growing up, I was spending a lot of time with them. He kind of was the person who was taking me to school. So when I was anxious back then, I remember him being there, taking me into the class, always there to wait for me when school was ended, or taking me to my extracurricular as a child. He would gladly come out of the car and sit with me while I was dancing in my dance classes. So I could just have him there to, just look at him and not get stressed, kind of thing. So he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I moved in the UK. So it was a very difficult time for everyone, because every time I was going back home, I was witnessing something different, seeing my grandpa different, not remembering who I was. And then we lost him in July 2021 when I was in the UK. So I had to go back and go through that with my family. And it was at that point when I realized that the effect it had on me. I couldn't really process my emotions. My anxiety was getting worse and worse. And you mentioned the feeling of a heart attack. I was actually admitted to A&E later on that year because they thought I was having a heart attack, but it was actually my anxiety hitting a high point. So I was really, really struggling to put it together, understand it, accept it. I just left the country, came back, and I was in denial for a couple of months. So that's when I seriously started considering getting help, especially after being in A&E and realizing, okay, this is actually affecting me a lot. That's when I kind of seek help.
Okay. And has that made a difference, seeking that help?
It has made a huge difference in my life. I took a break from it now, but I'm going back to it actually this week, because I feel like I've reached the point that I made some realizations, and the most important thing for me was actually understanding what anxiety is, actually understanding that I'm not gonna die, nobody's dying, or I've been through this before, it's gonna be okay. Even if it's not okay, it will eventually be okay.
I think this is some great advice for our listeners as well, because I think lots of us who experience high levels of anxiety or have an anxiety disorder, the education isn't there. First of all, we don't know, and having an understanding of what's going on with our body and our mind can help, but also the strategies you've just mentioned. So that's brilliant. That's really, really good. If you want more information on that, please go on to the Anxiety UK website. You can get some help. Also the NHS website and the Mind website. And we've got about just over 6 minutes left. So I want to just touch upon a few things. I'm really glad you got help, but also that you recognize that it's okay to continue to get help. And I assume that's in the form of talking therapies, in the form of counseling, etc. Yeah, so there's lots of different ways that you can get help. You help yourself, and that might be making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure that the source of your anxiety, if it's that you're worried about being late, that you plan well ahead. If it's preparing perhaps for a presentation, that you prepare well in advance. You have a supportive network. You eat well. You do lots of good self-care activities. All of that is really important. And counselling and talking therapies are very helpful as well. And if things get really bad, please do go see your GP. Obviously, there's some medication as well, that can help with high levels of anxiety as well. So I think the first and foremost, it's really important that you take care of you, and what can you do to reduce and manage that anxiety. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily mean that will work for you. So, anxiety.
And sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to add, if you want to ask any questions that will make your life easier at an event, or I usually ask 100 billion questions if I'm invited somewhere, just to make sure that I know what I'm doing, where I'm going, who I will be with, and all that. So again, the right people will not judge you for asking 100 billion questions. So I really wanted to stress that out, because it's something I've started doing recently, and it shows that the right people literally will give you the information you need.
I think that's a really good piece of advice, Tereza, that if you are not sure and it's, making you anxious, ask the question. It doesn't matter if you think, I'm going to get judged, I'm going to look silly. But if it's going to help you with your anxiety, ask the questions, don't keep them to yourself. Always helpful. Very good. Okay. Now, there is a difference between anxiety, which we all experience, and anxiety disorders. This is when it starts impacting on your everyday life, and it's stopping you from doing the things that you need to do. Maybe it's stopping you from going to school, stopping you from going to university. It's stopping you going to work. It's stopping you from having relationships, being around people, or even doing the things that you used to enjoy. So I think this is when it's really important you start getting help. And I think the first point of call would be to go and see your GP and have a conversation and tell them what's happening and what's going on, but also to speak to the people you love and trust and get the help from them as well. The other thing I would say is, as I said before, anxiety can be a common feature of another mental health problem. So it's quite common if you have depression. And some of the common anxiety disorders are generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, phobias, post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD, and health anxiety. You can, Google and research those conditions. We don't have time to go into them, but I want to just tell you about them. And also body dysmorphic disorder and perinatal anxiety or perinatal OCD. So that's quite some of the common ones, but there are many more as well. So it's really important, you get a diagnosis. It's always useful to learn about your diagnosis and how you can take care of you and where you can get help, because it can be better. You don't have to stay this way. And, overcoming fears is a wonderful thing, because what you imagined and what in reality happens, and you think, oh my goodness, I did that. Oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. So look, Tereza's a fine example of that. She's doing some amazing stuff and it's fantastic. Quickly, we only have 2 minutes, so I want to fit in very short time, imposter syndrome, and then final thoughts. So I don't know how many of you have heard of imposter syndrome, but Tereza, tell me a little bit about how this affects you.
So it's something that I'm still struggling with. It affects me in a way that I don't really recognize my achievements. Sometimes it's the feeling that you are a fraud, even though there are very many evidence that you're not. Sometimes I find myself, reminding my own self, you are the person who's had those exams. You are the person who had the interview. You are the same person who did X, Y, and Z. But I still, a voice in my head cannot accept that. What I'm really, really struggling right now with is that other people can see some amazing features or some amazing qualities that I have, and I cannot see them. So that's something I'm currently working on.
It's great that you recognize it, because one of the first things about how to overcome imposter syndrome is to recognize self-doubt and then to talk about it. Recognize your strengths. Give yourself credit where due. You've achieved that. Like you said, it was me that sat those exams and passed them. and accept perfection is impossible, because these expectations we have of ourselves, you know, the unrealistic expectations that society or we ourselves have of ourselves, it is self-destructive. It has a huge impact. So, you know, imposter syndrome can have a huge impact on job satisfaction, on performance. It can have a huge impact on our personal lives as well, on our mental health. So it's really important that we recognize it. And if you're really struggling with your thoughts and feelings, I think it's really important that you seek professional help and go speak to your GP or find a counsellor. Tereza, we have 16 seconds. So I want to say thank you so much to you for sharing your experiences. Thank you to everybody who's supported us on the show by listening in every week. Wishing you all Eid